Hey, welcome back, everyone. So, maybe you've seen some of the headlines. Trump says he's going to be arrested tomorrow. I want to talk about what he said, what this means, where things are at right now, and, well, is there actually a case against him? I can tell you briefly, as an introduction to this, I think this is actually going to benefit him, ironically. I think it's not going to stand, well, it actually might stand up, at least in New York. But really, this is, in a really ironic way, probably going to benefit Trump, and people are saying this already. I want to go into this a bit more, explain to you exactly what's going on, exactly what this means for the case, why they might be doing this, and also what it means as well that Trump's calling for protests to quote unquote take our nation back. Things are about to get really interesting, folks. Get ready for it. So, starting tomorrow, we will see. Already starting to an extent. Let's go into it. Those of you on Twitter, Facebook, Twitter, Rumble, we will jump over to exclusively to Epoch TV after about 25 minutes or so, so please join us there. That's our uncensored platform. We tend to walk a fine line with YouTube, so join us on Epoch TV. All right, that said, folks, jump to the first story. I want to show you Trump's tweets. Well, I guess they're on Truth Social, but we'll call them tweets for the sake of it. Trump said this. This was the big announcement he made. And he posted it in all caps. Trump said, "Our nation is now third world and dying. The American dream is dead. The radical left anarchists have stolen our presidential election, and with it, the heart of our country. American patriots are being arrested and held in captivity like animals, while criminals and leftist thugs are allowed to roam the streets, killing and burning with no retribution. Millions are flooding through our open borders, many from prisons and mental institutions. Crime and inflation are destroying our very way of life." That was the first part, and this is the second part of that thread he posted on Truth Social. He continued stating this. "Now illegal leaks from a corrupt and highly political Manhattan District Attorney's Office, which has allowed new records to be set in violent crime and whose leader is funded by George Soros, indicate that with no crime being able to be proven and based on an old and fully debunked by numerous other prosecutors fairy tale, the far and away leading Republican candidate and former president of the United States of America will be arrested on Tuesday of next week. Protest, take our nation back." When he said Tuesday, he means tomorrow. He posted this, of course, late last week. And so tomorrow is allegedly the day that the arrest of Trump will take place. Let's dig into this a bit. What Trump is actually doing here is interesting. He's actually laying out his entire campaign message in these two tweets. He's talking about how America is becoming a third world country, essentially, how the nation and what it stands for is dying. He says the American dream is dead. He's talking about how the radical left has stolen the elections, which he's stood by that claim this whole time. And I'd agree with him on that. I think the evidence is there. He says that with that, of course, they've stolen the heart of the nation, the election system being essentially the foundation that America's election system is based on. He says American patriots are being held in captivity. He's using the January 6th narrative with this. He's saying while that's happening, criminals and thugs, he's talking about lawlessness. They're able to roam the streets, burn down buildings, kill people. If you look at New York, even ironically, the judge going after, or the prosecutor going after Trump, he has a track record of reducing felony charges to misdemeanors. And so people are saying it's ironic that he's lifting Trump's misdemeanor to a felony to target him. I'll go into that in a bit. He's talking about open borders, what that means. He's talking about inflation. And then he's also talking about the weaponization of government, him now being the target of it. What Trump is doing here is something that he does actually, in my opinion, very well. He uses essentially what are judo tactics. Think of someone throwing a punch. You take the punch and you redirect it, right? He's taking the momentum of something and bringing it in the direction he wants. He's not backing down. I think this does tie into his business philosophy as well. If you read some of his books like Never Give Up, He does talk about this as basically his fundamental philosophy. That essentially you take the trials given to you and you use them to build what you want to build. That being said, not just me saying it now, but I think the common I think analysis coming out from most people on the right and even some on the left is that this ironically will probably benefit Trump. An arrest of Donald Trump will not end his ability to campaign or run for president. An arrest of Donald Trump will not end his movement. An arrest of Donald Trump will not derail things in any way. The most I think the left could hope for is that it would dissuade people from donating to his campaign, and it would create more controversy around him. But in reality, if you understand that the idea that any coverage is good coverage, essentially when it comes to media coverage, this will not damage him. Interestingly, and anybody who stood by him to this point where people are being called insurrectionists and so on is already essentially at a level where they don't care about that. If this does anything, actually, is it makes it look even more like this is a political attack. And you've even seen very strong opponents of Trump and people who've gone very anti-Trump, even Mike Pence, for example, who have come out actually defending Trump on this, meaning that even the people who believe Trump is an insurrectionist, even people who dislike him, who don't like his message or the way he does things, even the people on that side of things are actually becoming sympathetic towards him with this, meaning it's having the opposite effect already, at least in my take. Now, that being said, there is some speculation on how this will roll out, and I want to go over some of this with you all. There's speculation that Trump could actually be denied bail. In my opinion, again, this would actually probably benefit him more than it would harm him because it looks like political prosecution at that point. Let me show you this. This is Daily Mail, and it says this. It says, Donald Trump post claiming he'll be arrested Tuesday could see him denied bail over fears he'll try to incite January 6th riot at arraignment hearing, former federal prosecutor says. And it says further in that Glenn Kirshner, an MSNBC legal analyst, has compared the all-caps rant, Trump's post I just showed you, to his post leading up to the Capitol riot on January 6, 2021, and said it could affect the terms of his relief. He speculated that a judge could interpret Trump's post as an attempt to incite a crowd to riot, raising the specter of him being held behind bars to prevent him posting further inflammatory communications ahead of any trial. What do they mean here? They mean that basically the judge could use Trump's posts I just showed you, saying protest, it's time to take the country back, Trump calling for protests. They could take that in context of January 6th and suggest that Trump is essentially trying to start an insurrection. And that he would try to protest even, for example, the trial. If you read a lot of the leftist take on what Trump is doing with this, this is essentially the main narrative they're using, that Trump is pretty much protesting against the legal system at this point and calling for a repeat of January 6th across the whole country. They're accusing him basically of trying to start a second insurrection, is the way it looks like. And not necessarily to overthrow the government, but to challenge the basis of the legal system. The problem with that, even if Trump was in prison, he could still talk to his lawyer and very likely would have messages delivered to the public. You could expect him to be still pretty much the biggest news story in the country, and any journalist is going to be looking for news bites coming out from Trump. Meaning that Trump would become the focus of the entire nation, essentially, if he is imprisoned. And even right now, he is, even not being imprisoned. Trump has become the focus of the entire nation.